Marcelyn McNeil, and I am with Susan K. Grant, a photographer, and we have the pleasure of being in her studio right now as she's working on a set. And I'm going to take just a moment to acknowledge the fact that Susan has been a lifelong educator at Texas Women's University. I just feel like that's something significant to comment on.
Hey, Marcelyn.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm great. Great. So I'm just going to get right into this and start asking you questions.
Okay.
Um, so when I think about your work, I feel like you have definitely carved out your own lane in photography, and it's really ambitious and very curious what you're doing. A couple weeks ago when we spoke, you said that you may only make a couple prints, or excuse me, a couple images a year, which I was kind of gobsmacked at. So anyway, your work, it involves a ton of research, actual scientific research. You build these very elaborate sets, which we are in your studio right now looking at a set. Um, you work with models sometimes, and so it brings all these different facets together. And I'm wondering if you could just talk about what it was like for you when you first realized that your work was going to be this ambitious and take on all these things.
Wow. So you mean where it started or how
Yeah, kind
how I
of like
got
way
there?
back when you
Yeah.
first realized that to make a single, like a distilled image, the way you really wanted it, that it was going to just take on so much.
Well, I think when I started, I had no idea that it was going to get that involved. And um, I guess the way I would summarize it is that the work is motivated by personal experience and then illuminated by research. I really love researching topics, and I'm really curious about research, and then contextualizing the private and the public. So taking that private experience and looking at public experience, and then you really using that as a method to validate my own and our own experiences. But but really further than that, I would trace it all the way back to childhood. That for me as a child, I was always creating stories and narratives and fabricating images in my mind, really as a way to escape the unpleasantries of childhood. I've been quoted as saying that a lot, and I think I lived in my mind a lot, really to just escape life. And I think for me, as an artist, making this work and making narratives was always a respite from reality. It was a way to not, not be in the real world. So the stories become observational experiences of life. I'm very quiet. I always was an introvert as a child, and it was my way to find my voice in the world and find confidence in my voice. And that led to, journaling and research, using academic approaches to further my curiosities. And then the last thing I would say would be, when I was in college, I was a window designer, and I had several stores as accounts. And, working in that glass box and creating a narrative for a person walking by on the street is very much like the sets that I create, or the earlier work that I created in the last, 20 years. On the Night Journey project was all about fabricating a set that would tell some sort of an unanswered narrative.
Okay, so Susan, where does your interest in myth, memory, and metaphor come from?
Oh gosh, my three favorite words, the M's, magic and miracles. So myth for me is about inherited stories from my past, as well as cultural observations. Because I'm a quiet person, I spend a lot of time just observing people and places, and the stories that I inherited from my childhood, from my parents, my grandparents, and reading books, etc. And then memory for me goes back to the personal. It's about personal experience and internal conversations, remembering the conversations that I would make up about a certain situation or something that I see going on in the world. and making a story out of it and using my memory to do that. And then the last one is metaphor. Um, for me, metaphor is about bringing voice or an interpretation to the unspeakable. I think all my life I've made work about the unspeakable, things I'm afraid to talk about or things I'm afraid to look at. And for me, it was always easier to hide behind a camera or draw a picture or make a book than to communicate verbally. And I think that's where I found my way in the use of metaphor. Is I could pose all these questions and curiosities of that I had for others and myself as a way to just kind of uncover the weirdness in the world and the multiple points of view that we have about what's going on in the world, and make imagery about that.
Okay, so you unfortunately, we're going to be having a show, I think right now at Conduit, um, and because of our situation, that's not happening. But can you talk about? I've been fortunate to see a little bit of the new work, and can you talk about moving from this really evocative dream world into a more meditative, quiet place in the work?
Sure. Yeah, my show was supposed to open on May 23rd. And I have to say that for me, it was a gift. The extra time has been a gift. It's really given me more time to think about the work. And I guess I call it figuring it out and actually putting, as a photographer, you can do a lot more work up to the last minute, which is, the way I work. But really, when you say what it's like for me, I'll tell you the truth. I'm really nervous. I'm very unsettled. And at the same time, I'm really excited. To make this new direction in my work has been unsettling because I don't know. I think I know what it's about. I ask myself every day, do I like it? Do I not like it? Should I move this way? Should I move that way? For the longest time in the summer, I was contemplating whether I was going to give myself permission to move forward with this body of work or finish the last body of work that's so close to being finished. And in the end, I finally moved forward. And if I were to describe the new work, I would say that it's quiet, it's subtle, it's much more contemplated, and it's barely visible. Like if you look at that, the backdrop in the background of the set I'm working on right now it's barely visible. My other work was really dark shadows, and the narratives have become more abstract. And the main focus transitions from dreams, which the last work was dreams and memory, but this work is really more about memory and meditation. And I've sort of left the dream world behind and really exploring that notion of memory. And I'm using illustrations from childhood memories and books, juxtaposed with these patterns that I'm creating. And I'm staging narratives, but without people. I've never made work without people. Well, I guess I have made some, but not a lot, usually people. So I'm interested in this work in using these narratives to visualize internal and external dialogues. And this notion of the ambiguity of thought and perception, really looking at ambiguity and just the way we perceive things and how I can change how something is perceived by the way I light it and what I juxtapose with it.
Well, similarly, do you want to talk about the dramatic shift from dark to light?
Oh, sure. The dramatic shift from dark to light. I feel
I
like,
was really surprised.
yeah, I know. A lot of people, well, I haven't shown it to very many people, but a lot of people are surprised. I think a lot about the work that I've worked on for a decade has been very dark and physically dark. And I was searching back in the fall when I was really materializing the show. I was really thinking about the darkness in our culture, and that I just felt really kind of overwhelmed by the notions of gun violence, body, gender politics, environmental issues. And I was just searching for tranquility. And I just wanted to be in a space where I could be surrounded by something that was lighter. And I don't know, I just wanted to be in lightness rather than dark. And I also, I was telling someone one day that I'm searching everywhere for nowhere. That was almost the title of the show, and then I let it go. But it's almost like you can look everywhere for peace and answers, but it's with you the whole time. It's like you like searching everywhere for like there's nowhere to find. It's with you. Like you have to like internalize and come to terms. And I also thought a little bit about I did some research on near-death experiences. I was with my mother at the end of her life, and I watched her go from this world to another world back again. And I just, when she was, in the ER with her eyes closed, and I could see her, she would be talking, but not to us. And I just I was fascinated by where she might be and what that looked like. And then I started reading some visual descriptions of what near-death experiences look like, and it was that kind of white space, and that white space that's sort of mesmerizing, or calls you to contemplate. So I was thinking about that. I was also thinking about specifically these solitary moments of light shadows on a wall, the way that they're there and then they disappear. And when I was traveling and teaching in Europe, I started recording these times where it'd be like this little piece of magic, I think, where this little shadow would appear on the wall and then it would be gone. And I started thinking about how that the being there and disappearing quickly of it is very similar to this notion of generating meditative states. And I also started thinking about, when you close your eyes and meditate, there's these patterns that occur, and it's light if you're in a bright light room. So I started thinking about how would I image that? And then the very last thought would be this notion of active thought versus tranquility, that you can get yourself into a tranquil space, but there's active thoughts that are always occurring. And I was interested in imaging, making work that would reference that notion of those active thoughts versus that place of tranquility or place of being centered. I'm sorry, that's a long answer.
No, I can see that though. That makes so much sense. I can see it in what you're talking about. Okay, so last question for now. Are you interested in really pushing on uh, our perception, the viewer's perception?
um, I am. Um, I'm really interested in that notion of what's hidden from our view, and the ambiguity in what we see versus what we know, which I think it's really curious when we think about that. Um, the icons and the drawings that I've chosen were chosen specifically to evoke multiple meanings and circumspection. And I guess that's what I would say about pushing perception. The image that's behind me has a circle that's rotating ever so slightly when I turn it. And, even though it's just one thing in the middle of that image, it makes it look differently because of where it is in the image. I've also been shooting a little bit of video of things that move, and our perception changes as they move like that. I'm not sure yet if the show will have any of that in it, or that'll be a later show, but I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay.
I just want to say I thank you for sharing. I've been fortunate to see a little bit of your new work, and thank you for sharing that with me. And I am so excited about what you're doing right now, and I would encourage everybody when Conduit does have their show to come and see Susan's new work. I think you will be surprised. So,
Thank you, Marcelyn. It was really fun talking to you. Take care.
thanks.